Hello, friends, and welcome to our Secular Buddhist Essentials program. I am absolutely pleased to be here. We're having a retreat day today, SBT, the last Sunday of every month. We do an online retreat and we meditate together. We do some teachings, we do some Sangha chat. It's wonderful. Before we start today's class, let's take a moment to appreciate our community gathered here today. Today, I feel fortunate to sit as a member of this kind community in the safety and security of like minded friends, sharing this present moment with others dedicated to the cultivation of goodness. Today, I'm grateful for the direction and support that this community provides, a community worthy of my time and commitment, a community where my efforts have meaning, purpose, and are appreciated. Today, I'm thankful for this community of awakening, a place to gain the knowledge and skills to improve my life, a family, a home, and a sanctuary for all of us seeking refuge from the storm. And as conscientious practitioners, we must recognize our responsibility to the world, to strive to live skillfully while helping others to do the same, to strive to live in balance and harmony with nature and others, to strive to gain mastery over our minds and embody our true benevolent nature, to expand our hearts and minds, transcending our shared human limitations, to not intentionally harm sentient life or our planet, and to maturely accept and embrace the reality of our situation while striving to improve it. Oh, those are so pretty. Hey, we're back into it with our Secular Buddhist Essentials program. I think this is probably class 4. We're still kind of covering the introduction, the beginning of the whole thing. And today we're very fortunate. We are going to cover one of my very favorite topics to talk about. And generally, we're going to be talking about the Buddhist path, but more specifically, we're going to get into talking about the threefold path. So when we talk about, so last week we talked about what the Buddha taught. So today we're going to talk about the path itself. But first, when we talk about the Buddhist path, clearly we have to start with the three jewels. The three jewels is a central and foundational aspect of Buddhism, followed by all the traditions. And it's a concept of the three jewels represent the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These three structural pillars of Buddhism represent the primary aspect of the path. It represents, uh, it guides us, inspires us, gives us protection and support. When we talk about the three jewels, we talk about the first being the Buddha, the awakened one. You can also refer to this as the teacher. Number two, the Dharma. In Buddhism, the Dharma is the Buddha's teachings, often referred to as Buddha Dharma. And third is the Sangha, which is the Buddhist community, the congregation. It's all you folks right here with me. And the uh, the three jewels represent, there's a great analogy that the Buddha talked about that we go to the three jewels for protection, a lot like we go to a doctor. And so the Buddha represents the doctor, where the Dharma represents the medicine, and the Sangha of community represents the people helping to nurse us back to health. This is a famous analogy right from the sutras. So this is front and center, foundational in every single Buddhist group. The Buddhist path is often referred to as the Buddha's middle way path. We talked a little bit about this last week. And it's a path of moderation and balance and reason and virtue. I always love that line, the path of moderation and balance, reason and virtue. In fact, when I was at Sera Monastery in South India, the curriculum there was called the Path of Reason, and I always loved that. I believe that it was that path of reason that actually made me a secular Buddhist. I became so logical, so rational. It's really a practice of critical thinking, and uh, and it actually pulled me out of Tibetan Buddhism and made me a secular Buddhist. Um, and the middle way is also a middle between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification, as well as a middle between the extreme views of nihilism on one side, which is believing that nothing exists, and absolutism, which pertains to more like eternal existence or self-existence. According to the sutras, the Buddha, in his early life before becoming awakened, he was doing a lot of these very difficult practices, these self-mortification practices. And then he just realized at one point that they were actually making him suffer more. They weren't really leading anywhere. And the story goes that uh, he hears a musician tuning an instrument, a stringed instrument, and and the thought came to him that if the if the musician tunes the string too tightly, the string will break. And if it's not tight enough, it won't play. And he saw this as a beautiful analogy for the practitioner itself. In the same way, working with our own minds, if we don't have enough effort and discipline, we really don't get anywhere. But having too much uh, creates kind of neurotic qualities in the mind. They're not beneficial. And so this is what we think about with the Buddha's middle way. So the Buddha's path is also referred to as the threefold path. And I believe that this is the simplest and most accurate outline or model of the Buddhist teachings. So we have many senior students here that are familiar with the Buddha's Eightfold Path that derives from the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. That's something that we're going to be talking about later in this program. And that's the common description of the Buddhist path. But to be honest, I've fallen in love with the threefold path. The threefold path is simple and has an amazing elegance to it that I don't find in other ways. The Eightfold Path is kind of prescriptive, and it's just a list of kind of a checklist of that what you need to awaken. But the threefold path is magical. The way they all work together, they all benefit each other, they all support each other, and all three have to be used holistically to awaken, right? So I am just completely in love with the threefold path. And the threefold path leads to the attainment of happiness, right? So when we talk about happiness in Buddhism, I remember I had a Lama who said, "You Westerners all think Buddhism is about being happy. It's not about," and I think he was really wrong, that that's exactly what it is. And in the early sutras, the Buddha actually defines these higher states of awareness, nirvana, enlightenment, awakening. He defines them as the highest happiness. So somehow we see happiness as being separate or different from these qualities. So and in fact, they're not at all, they're synonymous, right? Um, they're actually just the highest forms of happiness. So when we talk about awakening, we've been talking a little bit about that so far. Let's define it. Um, so awakening, traditionally known as nirvana or enlightenment, uh, is understood as as it's to realize or awaken to the true nature of ourselves and reality. That's kind of the textbook definition. Um, and it's to awaken from our afflictions and delusions and awaken to our true value, our true potential, and true nature. It's to stop living on autopilot, in which we blindly follow habits and patterns and social conditioning. That's a huge part of our behavior. I call this mundane habitual existence. Buddhists here would recognize that as similar to the term samsara, which we're going to be learning a little later. This idea of nirvana and samsara, right? Unenlightened existence is samsara. Enlightened existence or awakened existence is nirvana. And so, yeah, I think about this regular day-to-day unenlightened existence as mundane habitual existence. Sounds kind of bleak, but I'm not denying that there's great happiness that's still involved, all right? Um, Oftentimes, Buddhist teachers try to make ordinary existence sound very bleak, saying that, oh, it's all suffering and there isn't any happiness. But the Buddha himself said, well, if there wasn't happiness, we wouldn't be trapped in it, right? We wouldn't be enamored by it. There's great pleasures in our ordinary life, but it is mundane, it is habitual, right? The happiness that we find is fleeting. It doesn't really last. We don't really get that long lasting happiness, that existential happiness that we're all seeking. Um, and I'm reading some of my notes. So it's an existence in which we never fully apprehend the true value of ourselves and the true potential we possess, right? So So when I talk about awakening, when we talk about that, awakening to our true value, our true potential, and our true nature, I think that really does make express it well. Um, None of us are really aware of our true value. You know, the idea of what miracles of biological evolution we all are. I mean, just the idea that we wake up every day and we're alive should just amaze us all. But we don't. We take it for granted. We don't really understand our value, what we're capable of, what true potential is, what we're capable of. So when you understand your true value and you understand the miracle of your existence at every moment, then you start to realize your true potential of all the things that you're really capable of. There hasn't been a single human being on the planet who has exhausted their potential. No human being has ever reached their highest potential, even Einstein or Isaac Newton, Mozart. There's always we always have more that we could do, right? And so when you realize your value, you start to realize your potential. And through that, we realize our true nature. So, in a nutshell, what we're talking about awakening is you're awakening to what life really is, or as the Theravada say, awakening to the way things really are, right? We kind of interpret life, we see life through a veil. We see, we try to see the world in the way we want it to be. But when we strip away all that delusion and we finally see the way life really is, and as I just expressed, seeing our true value, our true potential, our true nature, seeing how incredible life really is, and yet we kind of live a very mundane existence, right? We talk about mundane habitual existence. Habitual existence just means, most of our lives we're just running on autopilot, right? We're following habits. We're behaving the way the people around us behave, the way we think we're supposed to behave. There's not a lot of freedom there, right? We're not aware of our potential. And so with awakening, It's to realize the way life really is, to realize who and what we truly are, how our relationship with others work, how life works. And once you realize that and you get it and you get how life works, well, guess what? You can then be very successful in life. You can flourish. When you understand how life works, you can go about developing, cultivating a beautiful, beautiful life for you and those around you, right? So that's awakening in kind of a nutshell for you. So, how do we get to awakening? How do we awaken? We do it through the threefold path. Right? The threefold path is a complete path of study, practice, and training. It's made up of three aspects, and that of the development and attainment of higher understanding, higher virtue, and higher awareness. So when someone says to me, I'm a miserable person, I want to be happy, what do I want to do? Oh, it's simple. The threefold path. Oh, there's only three things, right? You ever get on YouTube and look at all the videos for how to be happy? And they'll, oh, the 13 this and the 6 this, or try these 5 things. And science has proven these 8 things are essential. Buddhism breaks it down to 3 simple things. And guess what? This comes from, 2.5 millennia ago. So we've had a lot of time to work with it and actually prove that it works. And so it's just those 3 simple things. You want to be happy? The threefold path. You want to be satisfied in life? The threefold path. You want to learn, you want to reach your full potential? The threefold path. Whatever you want in life, you can attain it through the threefold path. So, with that said, hey, how about I share this with you? I got a little graphic here. What you're peeking at here is the text itself as it's being written. So I jotted this down just the other day. So here, the threefold path is the development and attainment of higher understanding, the wisdom aspect of the path, pertaining to the cultivation of insight and understanding. And generally, it's of the true nature of ourselves and reality. For a Buddhist, it would be understanding the Buddhist teachings and model of reality. But just generally, any kind of higher understanding. Now, when we talk about higher understanding, I have a note here that says it better that I'm going to. Does it say it here? Um, Higher understanding means we're not looking at just mundane understanding, right? Through each of our lives, we're all trying to attain understanding. We're all trying to work with some level of virtue, right? We're all trying to be good people. We're all trying to have some kind of heightened sense of awareness. But what we're talking about here by higher, we're talking about awakened level. We're talking about reaching a much higher level of each one of these qualities. We're really setting the bar high here. So the second one is the development and attainment of higher virtue, which is the ethical aspect of the path pertaining to the cultivation of awakened behavior. And we do this through holding vows, cultivating basic goodness, and cultivating our benevolent qualities, compassion, understanding, wisdom, all of those wonderful things. And the third is the development and attainment of higher awareness. And this is the practice aspect of the path pertaining to the cultivation of higher mental and meditative states of awareness. And so they're often symbolized with this triangle you see. Virtue, though understanding comes first, virtue is often seen as the foundation of the whole Buddhist practice, and then the complementary sides of understanding and awareness. But in Buddhism, these three have to be cultivated together. There's a crucial interdependence of these three. This is where this incredible elegance comes in that I talk about. And just how incredibly they support each other and how vital each one is to the other. The more you explore this, the more you see it. And so, according to Buddhism, these three aspects are the aspects of human of spiritual evolution, right? These three simple things. Everything in Buddhism, all the teachings, all the practices fit into this. But according to Buddhists, all other religions, all other human qualities, they all fit into this. It doesn't matter if you're Buddhist, it doesn't matter if you're atheist. These three aspects, which can be cultivated completely secularly, this is the secret to life. These are the three things that lead to happiness, satisfaction, contentment, human flourishing, right? Oh, boy, did I sell it. Okay, let me get rid of that. Any questions so far? I want to dig in a little deeper, but let's open up the floor for a little participation. What do you guys think? Can you imagine those three simple things is the answer to all your life's problems?
I
My
say that you nailed
goodness.
it. You nailed it, Tarpa.
My goodness. Is the
Good.
Buddha really making it that easy for us? Don't we need to do 13 or 14 steps in our whatever those programs are called? Oh, please, Patrick, share.
Hope I'm not getting ahead or complicating. I'm just curious how, because there's so many like listicles in Buddhism. So like I think about the Eightfold Path, and then I hear this kind of threefold training. I'm not sure. I'm sure they're related, a lot of commonalities, but like I just it's kind of confusing. Good think about Eightfold
Sure.
Path as a
Well, I
path.
talked a little bit about this. And so the Eightfold Path is a more detailed description of the Buddhist path. But at the same time, I think it loses its elegance. I think through the Eightfold, when you look at the Eightfold Path, you don't see the connection
Mm,
that's there in the three. So there's some debate about which one comes in first. If the Buddha shared the threefold path first, the eightfold path second, as a way of helping to get people to understand a threefold path, or it was the opposite, that the eightfold path came first, and for people that thought that was too complicated, he gave them the threefold. And it's also known as the threefold training. But with SBT and myself, boy, I just have a whole different view on it. I think it should be called the threefold path. And it's those three aspects that we're cultivating. And again, it all comes down to this symmetry and elegance that is just off the charts, in my opinion. You know, the more I study it, it's just like magical how these three elements benefit each other. And I'm going to go into great detail about it in just a few minutes and bore you all to death. Okay, cool. And the other thing is that it's just so simple. You know, hey, when things are simple, we practice them. When things are simple, we get it. We get a level of clarity. I was in a Gaelic monastery, very academic, and it seems like they're almost intentionally making things difficult to understand. And and I'm not sure why, but I just think when things get that way, you lose all the clarity. And if you don't have clarity, it's really hard to apply knowledge, right? So, and the Buddha was all about this. The Buddha was always trying to keep things on a simpler way to communicate them clearly so they could be put into practice. So people could actually awaken, not just sit around a table and argue with each other, right? Okay, in my humble opinion, I'm going to get in trouble on these recordings. Hey, let's talk about the first one, the development of higher understanding. So when we talk about higher understanding, I'm not going to read my notes, I'm going to wing it. We talk about higher understanding. Traditionally, they like to use the word wisdom. Now, I have a problem with the word wisdom. It doesn't seem to match my experience. As I progress on the path, I don't feel like I've gained some exalted, privileged information that if people are nice, I'll let it trickle down to the masses. Right? No, for me, it's much more grounded. What I've experienced is an understanding of life, of understanding of how things really are. The word understanding really resonates with me. It's not privileged information by gurus up on a mountaintop. This is straightforward information that anyone can understand. And I think when we use a word like understanding instead of wisdom, I think it feels attainable to people, right? When we talk about higher wisdom, I think a lot of people feel a little left out. They say, well, I'm just a cashier at a dollar store. I don't know if I can reach that level. And I'm here to say, you can, dear. You can. Higher understanding is there. So I like the word understanding because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand who and what we are, our lives, and reality itself, right? Um, so we accomplish this through what's called the three great objectives. And this is from the Tibetan tradition. The three great objectives are study, contemplation, and meditation. And it's a way to take knowledge in its raw form and to distill it into real understanding or real wisdom. And so when we talk about study, now study can also be, in fact, in the original sutras, it talks about study is more like listening to the teachings. So study can be listening to the teachings, it can be reading books, watching videos. You get your study in. But more importantly, it can relate to experiential experience, right? Studying can be studying life. It's the wisdom or understanding that you gain by living your life, by seeing how you interact with others, by seeing how your teacher behaves, these things. So it's not just book study, it's just study of life itself in any form. Now, once you do some study, you get an idea about something, then it's time to step back and contemplate it. I always imagine sitting in my favorite chair with a big cup of coffee and thinking to myself, now what does all that actually mean? And if you can imagine that, in a sense, what we're doing is we're distilling or simplifying that knowledge, right? You can imagine a funnel. So we have that raw knowledge and we contemplate it to try to understand it, to simplify it, to gain some clarity. Then once you get a little bit of clarity, then you take it to the cushion. And then deepen meditation, insight meditation, you have the ability to distill that wisdom even further into really profound insight into life. So it takes raw knowledge and it brings it into direct experience. It's extraordinary, right? And so this is how we approach all of our studies in Buddhism. This is the Buddhist path, right? The three great objectives, right? So that's how we go about gaining higher understanding. And at now in Buddhism, when we gain this higher understanding, they refer to as right view. And view here can be understood as perspective, right? Orientation. It's right view is the way, and right here isn't so much as the true way. It shouldn't be taken in an absolute. It's just saying, I like to think of it as a more skillful, more productive, more accurate view of reality, right? So right view is having a proper or even just a usable view of reality, that you understand reality enough that you can do your practice and that you can awaken. And through that experience, you even have a greater understanding. So in Buddhism, our perspective is probably the quality we work with the most. You know, there's a lot of fake Buddhist quotes that say, you know, what you think you become, and but they're often not real, but they are accurate in their meaning, stating that the Buddha said a lot of things that are absolutely coincide with that. And so, what we perceive, how we perceive life, really is our reality, right? At least our personal reality. You know, we have clearly there's an objective reality that we all base our existence on, but then each one of us perceives the world differently. We all have different likes, dislikes, hopes, and fears. And so we all have slightly different realities that are subjective and they're true for ourselves. And so our perspective really does equal our sense of reality itself. So by changing that, by making it to purify that, is the Buddhist path, right? The purification of that. And in more scientific wording, you could say, like nowadays, very popular topic is cognitive biases, right? More and more, we're starting to realize how the mind has a lot of biases in the way it sees reality, right? There's negative bias in which, regardless of the natural state of things, we tend to see them all in a more negative light. That's just one. Where psychology is realizing there's just endless cognitive biases, and of course, there are little untruths, right? They're little filters or interpretations of life that aren't accurate. So, in this sense, this is what we're doing. We talk about purifying the mind. We're often talking about purifying our perspective, seeing the way seeing the way our lives exist. And uh, according to the Buddha himself, um, awakening is that purification of our perception, our perspective, our orientation, right? When we realize that at a direct experiential level, that's considered awakening itself. Okay. And we develop right view through the three great objectives. Oh, was that boring? So there's two different ways to experience right view or to interpret, experience life itself. And that is direct experience and a conceptual right view and direct experiential right view. So, and oftentimes we talk about right view is understanding the correct model of the Buddhist teachings, understanding the Buddhist teachings, because the Buddhist teachings are a model for the nature of reality. It's a model for, it's a proper model for existence itself, right? This is what the Buddha is giving us. He's giving us a model for how existence works, how we exist. And so now we can read Buddhist teachings. You can listen to me talk right now. You're gaining a conceptual understanding of the Buddhist teachings. You're listening to me talk. It's wonderful. This is where we start. But at some point, often during practice, these things, you start to have a direct experience of them. Here's a simple example. I can teach you all to meditate. You can sit in class. You can listen to me. Okay, I get it. I understand meditation. But it's a whole different thing when you get on the cushion and you start to meditate and you experience firsthand some of the things that we talk about. And clearly, your first experience of presence in meditation. And then you go, oh, wow, that's what it is, right? So conceptual understanding is you heard the descriptions of it, you have a basic idea, but clearly that's not the same as a direct experience. The favorite analogy is chocolate. Someone who's never tasted chocolate. I can describe chocolate till I'm blue in the face, tell you every ingredient, tell you how it chemically interacts with the tongue and saliva and the endorphins it creates in the brain, blah, blah, blah. But it's not the same as tasting chocolate, right? I can talk as much as I want to. And guess what? I'd save a lot of words if I just broke off a piece and stuck it in your mouth. What's chocolate? Uh, right? You don't have to say a word. And the person goes, Eureka, that's chocolate. Wow, that's great stuff. So, anyways, it's the same with Buddhist teachings. That direct experience is what we're really striving for, right? But it has to start with the conceptual. You learn about these things, you learn the practices, then you dig into your practice and you experience them firsthand. And this is what the Buddha says. The Buddha says, my teachings have to be experienced firsthand through your own experience. Okay, hey, let's move to the second one, higher virtue. So, um, so the development of higher virtue is related to the idea of awakened behavior, right? We have everybody, most people in the world do their best to be decent people, have decent relationships. Um, but that's one kind of level of virtue. But when we talk about this at a higher level, and we're talking about awakened behavior, like uh, understanding and experiencing compassion at a much deeper level than oftentimes you even thought was possible. This is the kind of virtue that we're talking about cultivating. And we develop virtue from oftentimes in Buddhism practice, it's through holding vows of precepts, right? We'll hold a certain amount of precepts, and they're all geared towards virtue. I won't harm things, I won't steal, I won't hurt people, uh, and these are some of the ways that we go about it. The thing about virtue is how much it affects our lives. So when you commit to a higher level of virtue, uh, it changes all your relationships in your lives. It changes the way you look at life itself. And I have no idea what I'm supposed to say about this. It goes far beyond. So when we talk about virtue, we can define it as possessing ethical excellence, being committed to doing what is right and avoiding what is wrong, demonstrating actions and conduct that is beneficial to the well-being of oneself and others. And oftentimes the development of virtue, um, what it does is it awakens and develops our sense of our true nature in Buddhism. So Buddhism has a premise that underneath it all, underneath all of our afflictions, underneath all of our problems, that human nature is pure, wise, good, clear, compassionate. Uh, Buddhism asserts a beautiful image of human true nature. And they assert that underneath it all, we have this beautiful nature, but it's clouded by our afflictions. And when we talk about afflictions, we're talking about immaturity, selfishness, anger, right? All these envy, all these qualities, self-centeredness. But Buddhism believes that they're more like an illness. They're not part of our true nature. We're afflicted by them, but they're not a part of our true nature. And we've had many debate about this, but the thing about it, there's a truth that can be found for yourselves, because when you practice, say you're getting deep into meditation, you start to realize that whenever you go deep in meditation, these afflictions fall away. If you're angry getting to the cushion, halfway through a good meditation, that anger just falls away. Selfish behavior, things like that. And what you find over and over again is every time you go into meditation, the afflictions diminish. Desire is another one that really diminishes in meditation. And you always find this pure nature that's there. Whenever you're in a productive, wonderful meditation, you find joy, you find happiness, you find love, compassion, affection, contentment. These are the qualities that are just there every time you go to meditate. Now, you could have a couple bad meditations where, the afflictions are hard to shake off, but generally, that's what we find. So for me, that's gives me a reason to trust that is indeed the nature of us, that we do have this beautiful, pure nature. And that's what we're working for in Buddhism. We're working to transcend those afflictions. And we do it by slowly training the mind, right? Slowly gaining control over our mind and our awareness. And we don't suppress those afflictions, we transcend them. Through understanding everything we can about them, we can start to lessen it and let go of them all. Okay, so that's virtue. I often like to call virtue logical goodness. Isn't that a great expression? Logical goodness. Now, of our beautiful threefold path, we have one more. We have the development of higher awareness. Now, I use the word awareness because I believe it's incredibly accurate, but there's a lot of discussion about that. Um, but it is exactly that. And it pertains to they say it pertains to the method side of the practice, because this is where uh, we derive it from. This is the cultivation of higher mental and meditative states of conscious awareness. And it's developed through, as you can imagine, practices of meditation, mindfulness, but also other Buddhist practices, even contemplation, uh, allow this. And again, we're trying to gain mastery over our awareness. Now, this one sounds a little, this one sounds a little unfamiliar, but the truth is we work with developing higher awareness in every minute of the day, boy. So let's talk in awareness. We're talking about qualities like attention. So all through school, you were always cultivating higher awareness by being able to be more attentive at school, being able to focus more, right? But another really important aspect of awareness is, let alone being able to hold our awareness, but to sustain our awareness. So, like in the last example, paying attention in class, but being able to hold that attention, right? To sustain it. But also, we're sustaining with our awareness other qualities like virtuous qualities that we just talked about. Higher awareness allows you to sustain patience, right? Patience, we just don't apply it in a moment and then stop, right? Patience is sustained. Contentment is sustained. Kindness, compassion, intelligence is sustained, right? We can focus and really bring our keen attention to that. Courage, strength, all of these qualities need to be sustained. This is where higher awareness comes in. You've been practicing it every day of your life, right? And so when we practice, we have the ability to gain insight into even higher levels of awareness. So the first time we experience this is in meditation and in the and experiencing the quality of presence, right? To be in the present moment, to be in the here and now, which means to be off autopilot, right? Autopilot and presence are opposites. So when we're present, we're not thinking about the past, we're not thinking about the future. We're here in the present moment. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather our scattered attention and being able to bring it to bear and sustain it, right? So most of the time, our attention is terribly scattered unless we're doing something very important or dangerous. But generally, when we're doing things, we're thinking about everything else in the world. Well, that's a very weak awareness. That's a very weak attention. So when we learn how to gather that, and of course, you all know through meditation, we use the breath. We place our awareness, our attention on the breath, and we try to gather that scattered mind and become present without the mind going into autopilot, going into mind wandering. And but what's really exceptional is when you do it, the quality that comes from it, right? The experience of presence. When you first learn presence in meditation, you're just trying to watch the breath. But at some point, when you've gathered enough of your awareness, this extraordinary experience comes over you. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. This incredible sense of spaciousness and peace and contentment come over you. This is the real aim of practicing presence, right? Is to get to this higher level of awareness, which takes in the world peripherally, right? And there's a sense of a great objectivity to it. There's less of a mental drama, and that endless cycle of thinking is diminished. And there's great peace that we find in that moment, right? And probably more important, great clarity. And we can really see things the way they are. This is the first taste of awakening. I see awakening as a spectrum of higher awareness. And so presence is the first experience we have of that. But then from there, there's further milestones of equanimity, stillness, nirvana, enlightenment. And they just become greater and greater as we gain more control over our awareness and mastery over that awareness. And we can really choose and dictate for ourselves what we want our minds to be, right? Currently, our minds, let's face it, our minds drag us all over the place, right? The mind has a great idea to go do something. It turns out miserable. Our mind, I don't know about you, but my mind wants me to stop for some Ben & Jerry's ice cream when I know I shouldn't be eating it. My mind wants to have another sandwich when I know I've had enough. Our minds kind of drag us through life, and we stumble through life. And we stumble and we hope that we'll stumble into happiness. We hope that we'll stumble into success. And we work hard and we work towards those. But nevertheless, we're always battling our mind. We're battling our mind. We're battling our habits. We're battling our afflictions, afflictions none of us chose. And so the idea through these practices, as we master our minds, we master our lives. And by mastering your life, you master your happiness, right? Happiness is no longer something you wish for that you hope to fall into. happiness becomes something you clearly understand how to cultivate, and you get really good at it. And you can be happy when you want to be. You can decide what to think, when to think, or not to think at all, right? Okay, so that's higher awareness. And again, we cultivate that through meditation, mindfulness, and various other practices. Let's open up the floor to ideas. What do you guys think about that? I thought it was an okay presentation. Sometimes it streams from me, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So, three simple things, right? What are they? The development of higher understanding, of understanding life itself, who you are, what you are, the development of higher virtue. Now, when we talk about a higher virtue, I often say that Buddhism really is just about becoming beautiful beings. I always like the way that sounds, but it really is true. The Buddhist path is about becoming a beautiful being, being amazing towards other people, all the qualities that the superior human qualities we express at the highest levels, right? This is the idea of virtue. But remember, virtue is more than just being nice and being good. Virtue also, there's those secular virtuous qualities like strength and maturity and a whole bunch of others that I can't think of right now, um, and bravery, and yeah, there's a lot there. And then we have higher awareness, and they all come together to support each other, right? For higher virtue, we can't practice higher virtue without first understanding what virtue is, clearly and deeply understanding what virtue is, knowing its benefits. And then we can't practice higher awareness without understanding what awareness is, understanding what meditation is. You need your instructions. And then those virtuous qualities, the joy that comes from virtue, the harmony in your life that comes from living a virtuous life, that benefits our practice, our awareness, and it further develops our understanding. Miss Wamo?
Thank you, Venerable Tarpa. My question is, how do we know always when we're taking something, when we're using the three great objectives, we're studying something, then we take it through contemplation, we take it through the cushion, and we're trying to figure out, gain a higher understanding of something, and then we go through that, whether or not, what are we using to figure out if the understanding that we come up with is the right understanding? What are we,
The
do you
Buddhist
understand?
teachings,
Mm-hmm.
the
So
Buddhist
always that.
teachings, and your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So according to Buddhism, there's two aspects that are authentic in Buddhist teachings. The Buddhist teachings themselves, the sutras,
Mm-hmm.
but then the wisdom that arises from authentic practice. Now, you could say, well, what exactly do you mean by authentic practice? But we're talking about a practice that is nurtured or arises from the Buddhist teachings, in which you follow your practice correctly. Hopefully, there's a teacher involved that helps. And that's
Mm-hmm.
probably the third answer, is to check with your teacher, to check with other students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering too, sometimes sometimes you find conflicting, even in the sutras, you find conflicting things.
Even
And
within the same sutra.
yeah, and sometimes even with different teachers, you find different answers. So, yeah.
And then those aren't necessarily wrong. Oftentimes, those are just from different viewpoints.
Right.
And then you look at
Right.
Buddhist history and you think of all the wrong philosophies that flourished and then people stopped following. Like almost everyone's stopped following the Yogacara philosophy, which arose after Majamaka. Um, so, yeah, mistakes are made.
Yeah.
And, certainty is a hard thing to come by in life, right? So you do the
Yeah.
best you can.
Okay.
But that's what's great about being a part of a Sangha. And, like our approach, we're so open to all the different traditions. I think that really keeps us on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Thank you.
And as a teacher, I'm always very clear about what aspects are my opinion or what aspects are from which tradition. I think that's really important for teachers to do so that students can decide for themselves. My job isn't to tell you what to think. My job is to give you the information for you to decide what's true for you. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? What'd you think of the threefold path? Isn't it great how simple it is, huh? How elegant it is. Hey, lastly, I want to share one more thing. I think I got a minute. Um, there is now this is something that SBT offers. This is a piece that I wrote. I call it the threefold wisdom. And that through the cultivation of each aspect of the threefold path, three distinct wisdoms arise or understandings, right? These three distinct yet interrelated wisdoms are complementary, supporting and developing each other, with the full attainment and union of the three being the awakened state itself. So we have these three objectives and attainments: higher understanding, higher virtue, and higher awareness. And the idea is when these three merge together as one wisdom, this is the awakened state itself. So through the development of understanding, we gain a unique and expansive wisdom that understands, again, who and what we are, how we relate to others, our environment, and reality. A wisdom through which we transcend attachment, aversion, and ignorance, three of the great afflictions. Then, through the development of higher virtue, we gain a unique and expansive wisdom that opens our hearts and minds, a wisdom that's free, that frees us from negativity, bias, self-cherishing, or egotism, and allows us to see the world in a more equanimous, wholesome, and accurate way. So you can see how developing virtue benefits our understanding. And then we have the development of awareness, through which we gain a unique and expansive wisdom imbued with clarity, objectivity, and serenity. A wisdom through which we transcend petty concerns while gaining control over and stabilizing our minds and emotions. A wisdom through which we transcend our busyness, our speediness, and our exaggerated sense of immediacy and self-importance. One of the qualities I also notice about all of these, that it seems like with human beings, there's two aspects of our nature. We're either opening to the world or we're closing off to the world. This seems like a natural thing that human beings do. When we're opening to the world, and this is where virtue comes in, because when we practice virtue, we're opening our hearts and minds. When we're opening to the world, and engaging with others, it actually produces understanding and wisdom because you're open to different ideas. You're listening to other people's views, right? You're open to new thoughts, new things, new experiences. It's an opening, a flowering of the heart. This is practicing virtue. Practicing higher understanding is the same. It's opening your mind, the flowering of your mind to new thoughts, to new ideas. And the same with development of higher awareness. We're opening our awareness to the world. We're taking in more of the world. We're learning how to engage wholeheartedly with the world in the present moment and not backing away and hiding into autopilot mode in which we're closing off and we're existing on habits. Now, think about the opposite. Think about closing off to the world, right? We limit our exposure to others. We limit our new ideas. We limit new experiences. We become insular, right? This is the creation of a lot of our afflictions. This is where people become self-centered, only thinking about themselves, right? Compassion has this way of opening us to the world. But when we close ourselves to the world, it's quite the opposite. When we close our understanding off, we become pig-headed, right? We just take in one source of information, and we develop a very closed, not open mind. And then the same thing with awareness. When we close off our awareness, when we become insular, we become internal, we lose all that information. We lose all that joy, all that happiness that are out there. So in so many ways, I see the spiritual evolution of human beings as this apparatus of opening and closing. If we look at a spectrum of nirvana at one end and samsara at the other, we could say that that's clarity and confusion, right? Clarity is that opening. Confusing is closing ourselves off from the world. And we could see the Buddhist path in this way. The Buddhist path is a way of opening ourselves to reality, to others. But it's also an opening to happiness, to our potential, to our value, right? And to me, this is the only direction to go. Sometimes it can be challenging. As we open ourselves up, we often can be vulnerable, but so worth it, right? Anybody want to share any last thoughts before we wind things up? Okay, everybody. So, with that said, why don't we end this class with an altruistic affirmation? May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well, may all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is a source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Our retreat continues in about 20 minutes. We're going to be engaging in our vow purification ceremony and refuge ceremony. So that's going to be great. It's a short ceremony. Everybody is welcome to attend. It's quite beautiful. It's quite virtuous. So I hope you can all make it. And then after that, we'll end today's meditation with a loving kindness meditation. Okay, see everybody in about 20 minutes. Bye-bye.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Venerable
Tarpa.
Tarpa.
You're welcome.